your friendly online speech-language pathologist and specialist in child development and behavior and communication. It's a whole range of stuff that I do. Today, however, I am here to introduce you to the topic, if you don't already know, of vestibular sensory input. I'm going to talk about how you might know that your child might need some more vestibular input and how you can provide it in ways that are going to be helpful for your child. First of all, please watch the other videos in this series. I will put a card up there so you can click on it and explore at your leisure. If you haven't already watched some of these videos, I usually separate into two parts things that we can do throughout the day to help in that particular area and things that we should do kind of in clumps, which I call sensory meals because these meals are part of a sensory diet. Doesn't have to do with what we eat. It has to do with the kind of sensory stimuli that are entering our bodies through our senses. First, I'm going to talk about let me talk about first, what is the vestibular sense? Your vestibular canals are inside your ear, way in there, and they tell your body where you are in space. So, for example, if you tilt your head like this, but your eyes are closed, you still know that your head is tilted. If your whole body is tilted, you know without even looking around you that you are at an angle. This is your vestibular sense. Perhaps the child in question needs a little more input to the vestibular sense. How would we know that this is the case? Well, one way we might know is that the child likes to spin in circles. And spin in circles. I have lots of kids who do this in the classroom. They'll just go off in the corner and spin in circles. Or they really love to be on the merry-go-round. They might love those egg swings that just spin in circles. I had one in my classroom, and you can tell the kids who need more vestibular input because they're in there they just want you to spin them and spin them and spin them and spin them. So we always called that a red hot atomic fireball. We'd wind the kids up and then let them go, and off they would go, spinning into infinity. I do not like that. A typical person with a typical sensory system will probably throw up with that kind of spinning. Most of our kids who are on the spectrum, perhaps, don't seem to have that same sense of dizziness with their vestibular canals and that kind of spinning motion in space. If your kid doesn't get dizzy, if your kid craves that kind of spinning, if your child likes to jump off things, sometimes that can be a need for proprioceptive input because of the bashing on the floor with their feet or their knees or whatever they're landing on. But sometimes it's the change in elevation. So the jumping off isn't about the hitting, it's about the falling, in which case that could be a vestibular need manifesting itself. If your child craves and always wants to be on the swing, even just the one that goes back and forth, not just the one that goes around in circles, that's another vestibular thing. Any action where the body is moving through space in any of these planes is probably, if your child is doing this herself, is probably a sign that we could purposefully invest some more vestibular activities into this child's life. Also, if your child likes to be upside down, is always hanging off stuff, likes to stand on her head or put her head down and her butt up in the air, this is another sign that perhaps she could benefit from some more vestibular input. How can we add more vestibular input throughout the child's day? Well, this can be tricky because a lot of these activities are sort of recess, outdoorsy activities. So get your child as active as possible. Don't prevent your child from being upside down. Provide opportunities in the house to do somersaults, to spin around, have a sit and spin. Make these things available throughout your child's day so that he can meet those needs as he needs to, so that she has access to a sit and spin and she can spin. If you are at home with your kids, make sure that you go to the park on a regular basis, every day if you can. If not, bring some of those park-like activities into your home if you can. If your child is in school, make sure that she is going outside, that she has access to monkey bars and a merry-go-round and all the other things that will benefit her in the vestibular sense. Once again, talk to the teacher. This is something where you will have to work together with the school, because it's not something that your child can just quietly do in her desk. She needs to be out there doing these active things in order to meet this need. Not all the time, but regularly throughout the day. Now we are going to talk about what you can do during those sensory meal times. I recommend setting up 3 to 4 chunks in your day where you sit with your child for 15 to 20 minutes, depends on your child. If it's not helping, then you need to probably increase the time or the intensity of the input. But start with 15 minutes 3 times a day, separated by, so in the morning, afternoon, evening. Try investing in some vestibular input during this time. Maybe you have a slide. Maybe you go to the playground 3 times a day. Maybe there's one near your house and the weather is perfect, so you can do that. Or maybe you have a hidey hole in the basement where you have a little slide and you have a sit and spin. Or maybe you pick up your child under her arms. I do this with my nieces. I do this with kids in my classroom. We move everything out of the way a little bit. I pick up the child underneath his arms or her arms and I spin. We call it an airplane ride. That is super fun, and it's beneficial for me too. It's good cardio. It's completely exhausting. And I get dizzy very quickly. So that's our limit factor right there, is if I feel like I'm gonna barf, we have to stop for now. The kids usually do not get tired of this. They could do this for hours and hours. And I can see why. It would be kind of fun. Also, if you have a crash pad, this is something new that I just did. I don't know, I think I might have some video of this. My nieces have a crash pad in their basement. And we went over there a couple weeks ago, and I decided I was going to do crazy sensory activities with them. I am not the auntie who says, "Oh no, everyone's going to get hurt." I'm the auntie who says, "Yes, let's jump off that. Let's roll you up in a blanket and throw you on the couch." That's the kind of auntie that I am. So I picked up my littler niece, who's still 8, so she's not, 2, and I swung her a little bit, and then I threw her. Actually, I think I spun around first, and then I threw her on the crash pad, and she thought that was the best thing ever. And then when Uncle Greg, my husband, came down into the basement, I grabbed her feet, he grabbed under her arms, and we swung her like this, and then we both tossed her. So she was pretty high up in the air, and then she landed on the crash pad. Keep in mind, the crash pad is 2 feet or something of nice squishy foam with fleecy fur on top of it. So it's very safe to land on, and it's humongous. She was not in danger. And also it was blocked off by squishy couches on the side. It was in the L part of a sectional, so she was blocked off on all the sides. Very safe. So that is a very fun vestibular activity. She's getting to go back and forth, which is that swinging, moving through space, and then she's falling onto the crash pad, and then she gets that proprioception from the actual hitting onto the crash pad. This was a very fun activity. If you can do this kind of thing a few times throughout your child's day, it does not have to be for 15 minutes if that is far too much. And please don't throw your back out. Be careful. Maybe you can just get a chair and carefully help your child up onto the chair, and then she can jump onto the pile of pillows or the couch cushions or whatever the case may be. Just keep in mind that these kind of activities that kids kind of naturally gravitate to, they gravitate to them because they're really good for their sensory systems. They're fun, and also they help their sensory systems to soothe them, to regulate them, and to help their development. These are good things to do. We should find appropriate outlets for these needs that kids have, rather than trying to just get them to stop. Any way that you can get your child upside down is also a great thing. In my basement growing up, we had a bar hanging from a beam in the laundry room in the basement, which was an unfinished laundry room. But I remember just hanging upside down in there by my knees. I loved it. And swinging back and forth like an acrobat. It was very fun. So something like that is a great idea. Even if you can't hang something from the ceiling, you can, of course, have some sort of piece of furniture where your kids can hang off backwards. You can teach your kids some of the yoga positions where you're upside down. So either downward dog or upward bow. You can enroll them in gymnastics, which is awesome, but sometimes I like doing all these things at home. If I had children, I would try to do most of these things at home. I'm just not a big joiner. I just don't want my kids, I wouldn't want my kids to be gone every night of the week to a different activity. I don't think that's good for anyone. So maybe incorporate some of these things into your sensory meal times that you have spread throughout the day. Also, a dance party. There's a lot of moving through space as you're dancing. Walk, run if you can. Even on a treadmill where you're not actually moving through space, you feel like you're moving through space. And it's good for you to move on a treadmill. So if a treadmill is what you have, the weather outside is too cold, too windy, too wet, too hot, whatever the case is, you can still move. A bicycle, if your kid can ride a bicycle, you're definitely moving through space when you are riding a bicycle, and it's very fun and fast. Don't forget your helmet. I do recommend one of those cocoon swings if you can. If you have somewhere to hang it in your home or your garage or your back porch, they are really amazing for kids who really need to spin, and they can sue the kid down super fast. And sometimes that is what we want. Do keep in mind, sometimes a child who has vestibular needs will be a runner. Many of our kids who are neurodivergent run anyway. They don't understand the concept of danger. And I've done a video on what we call elopement, which you can find up there. But in addition to some of the social emotional issues that can lead to running away, there's also the vestibular factor of running, especially the fun of someone chasing you if you're running. In which case, we need to have a method for dealing with this. Of course, please fence in the areas where your child might run away. Keep locks up high on your door so your child can't get out without you knowing it. Put alarms on your doors if you have an issue with this. I have listed a whole bunch of practical supports in that video that I linked. And teach your child over the space of time, if necessary, that running time only lasts for a certain period of time, and when the alarm goes off, it's time to come back. And you would do this just like you would do this for a pet who likes to run. You try to teach that when you come back, you get a treat. So if you run away, I want you to be safe. We're going to try to teach you not to run away. But if you do, and the alarm rings, which you can make ring whenever you want, and you come back, then we're going to do your very favorite thing. That's a really good method for trying to get kids to return when normally they would just keep running. I also recommend a trampoline. Once again, yes, I recommended a trampoline for the proprioceptive sense because it's giving deep pressure to the joints and the ligaments and all of that. But it also is moving through space because you're changing elevation, which is a great thing for the vestibular sense also. Overlapping as many of these activities as possible is a great idea because then you're getting all sorts of sensory input from all different sensory modalities all at the same time. So it's very efficient. And you might notice that most of the sensory activities that are the most efficient, and by that I mean that they feed more than one sense at the same time, most of them are very active. I think that a lot of our kids in our current modern environment have a lot of sensory needs because they're not active enough. We can fix that. as the people who love them. We can work on ways to get them more active, ways to get them more active in a more balanced sort of way, and ways to meet all of those sensory needs that are healthy and happy and social and interesting and creative and fun. Most of all, fun and interactive. I hope this video made you think. Tell me in the comments down below, which vestibular activity does your child enjoy most, and which one are you going to introduce to help enrich your child's sensory experience in life? I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Oh, don't forget, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps me be able to spread the message of welcomingness and hope to lots more families. And that is what we want to do here. Have a great day. See you next time. We're going to be casual today because my cat, Alistair, does his face, has decided, and yes, he's a really big cat, he has decided that he would like to join us for this conversation today. Now he is sitting, but he loves his mama.